As the effort is made to let go of the field of experience, some things are quite easy to notice and there's not much identification. Hearing a sound from the street, seeing a visual form, the color of the carpet. There's not much personal about that. There might be a feeling of I see or I hear, but it's not too challenging or demanding to recognize that's a sound. It arises, passes away. That's a color. It arises, passes away. The heart lets go quite easily. A bit more challenging is physical sensations. Feels more like I'm experiencing this. I feel this texture, the cloth on my skin or the weight of the body on the cushion. I feel. Particularly with sensations of pain, can really be very hard to get a perspective on. Sense of I'm in pain. I can't bear this. Ow, this hurts me. The feeling of I and me and mine gets stronger. We use these tools to help the mind to get a perspective on things that are a bit more impactful, especially like physical pain, other sensations, so that we can know, well, whether it's painful or pleasant or neutral, it is in a state of change. It is unsatisfactory, it's uncomfortable already. But anatta, can we just know that sensation as it is, without there being a me who knows it, or me who owns it, a me who has it? In particular, can the mind not create a whole flurry of activity around it? The Buddha used the image of a soldier shot on a battlefield. Said, the first arrow that the soldier is shot with is physical pain. Said, everybody experiences this, whether you're young or old, rich or poor, whether you're an arahant or a worldling, a patujana, there is physical pain. It's experienced. No one can avoid that first arrow. The second arrow is the mind's worrying, negotiating, resenting, all of the flurry of agitation and negativity, anxiety that occurs around that painful feeling. That's the second arrow. So when we speak about the ending of dukkha, the third noble truth, it's all about the second arrow. The Four Noble Truths is not about ending the experience of physical pain. Even the fully enlightened Buddha experienced chronic pain when he was old. But it's about the second arrow. All of the worrying, resenting, negotiating, waiting for it to be over. That's all the second arrow. That feeds very strongly the sense of self. So in our practice and learning to let go, it's not just letting go of the sensation of painful feeling, but letting go of the fretting, negotiating, worrying, resenting, waiting for it to be over, to open the heart, to, in this moment, there's this sensation. Here it is, anicca, dukkha, anatta. To not create complication around that. Our thoughts also, particularly in an intellectual culture, as so many of us live in these days, along with the way that sensations, physical pain and comfort can be very deluding, attractive, convincing. Our thoughts and our opinions can be even more convincing. My ideas, my problems, my plans. The thoughts arise and pass away, and also are not self. So it's challenging to change the perspective on thought, that we can take this practice, this development of insight, to challenge our own thinking. Just because we think it doesn't mean it's true. So I encourage us to listen to our own thoughts, just as we're listening to the sounds of the street, or the dogs barking, the purring of the machinery. A lot of our thoughts don't have any meaning or value at all. Just like the replaying of familiar advertisements on the TV or the radio, computer. We understand the words, but it has no value, no meaning, empty. Perhaps even more difficult to let go of, things that are more convincing are our emotions. Loving, hating, feelings of emotions of excitement, jealousy, anger, can be really convincing, really powerful, very personal. Our heartbreak, our pride. These too are empty patterns of perception arising and passing in the field of experience. My big feelings of loss, the tragedy of my life, or the great achievement, things I'm so proud of. Feelings of attachment, devotion to our family, our teachers. Feelings of resentment, those who broke our hearts, who let us down. Emotions can be very convincing, very powerful. But these two, anicca, dukkha, anatta. When emotions arise, pleasant, painful, neutral, positive, negative, wholesome, unwholesome, whatever they might be, we can bring the same change of view. Feelings of anger might be very strong. I'm angry about this, or I hate that person. They did me wrong. We might recognize, oh, I've got a real anger problem. I'm so negative. I'm so filled with aversion, hatred. Got to get rid of it. It's a real problem. We forget that we didn't invent anger or hatred. It existed in the universe before we were born. It's not personal. It might be felt here in this mind, but you didn't invent anger. You didn't invent jealousy or hatred, fear. The mind experiences those emotional patterns, but how could they be owned? How could they be who and what we are? So they're known here in this mind, but they are not a person, they don't belong to a person. That which knows the person isn't a person. This awareness is not an I or a me or a mine. It's not female or male, old or young, Indian or British. That which knows the person isn't a person. Awareness has no age, no gender, no identity. An even deeper layer of attachment can be that of making choices, even if It can develop the insight into sensations, emotions, perceptions, thoughts, opinions. It really feels like it's me who decides to change my posture, who chooses these words. Me, the decision maker. But again, when this aspect of choosing, deciding is examined, that too, every aspect of that process can be seen to be anicca, dukkha, anatta. It looks like there's me, an I who makes a choice, but it's just a weaving together of perception, memory, thought, volition. Put it all together and it looks like I'm deciding to use these words. I decide to come along to a meditation weekend. But when the anatomy of a decision is explored, every aspect of it is anicca, dukkha, anatta. So we use this practice to explore, to get to know the habits of clinging and identification. And then the more they're known, the more they are let go of, and the heart is freed from those limitations, those boundaries, those burdens, and responds to each moment with mindfulness and wisdom, rather than from self-view and habit. Ignorant attitudes and perceptions. The world is related to, this body, this mind, and the world around us is related to based on awareness, mindfulness, and wisdom. Please take a few minutes to stretch your legs and then we'll gather back together for time for Dhamma discussion, questions, responses. Was that loud sound earlier today something breaking down or something, a fuse blowing or?
I think the power went away
Oh.
for 10 minutes. There was a it was running
Oh.
like this.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's what I thought. The power's gone out and I thought, oh no, it's still live and the microphone worked. I thought, oh, okay. So you've got a battery backup.
Yeah.
Very sensible. Thank you. So before we open things up for questions, I just thought I'd like to offer a few reflections about success and failure in particular. So this is something that is a big influence in our lives. I would suggest, again, I'm not reading anybody's mind. It's how did he know? It's like statistics, not psychic powers. Most of us are very affected by success and failure, even from when we're small children going to kindergarten, who gets the gold stars and who doesn't, who comes top of the class or who comes bottom, gets embedded in our consciousness early on. And as I was saying earlier today, success becomes inflated to be an absolute good and failure as an absolute bad. So if we apply these reflections on anatta, not self, and it changes our relationship to success and failure in quite a radical way, because even though we might be entering into the work we do or the service we provide to the community or our family with a good heart, it can be overtaken by, I want to succeed, I'm afraid of failing, what will they think of me, have I got it wrong, I've blown it. And so it's helpful to understand that we can make sincere effort in the work that we do, the looking after the family, looking after the monastery, the companies we work for or we own, or the hospitals where we work, or the schools where we teach, and colleges and so on. But we don't have to have that dominated by self-view. If we learn to how to notice this quality of self-view arising, then when we put effort into a particular task and it goes well, then there's a sweet taste. Like, yeah, that succeeded. That has turned out as we'd hoped. Yes, there's a sweetness there. There's a natural delight. That doesn't have to be grasped like, yes, I made it. Look at me, I'm such a brilliant person. Look what I did. Rather, you notice the sweetness of success, and rather than getting drunk on that, getting carried away, okay, well, that was very sweet. What is there to be learned from that? So it's that says that came together in a good way. What does that say about a good direction to head for the future? Full stop. That's all. Similarly, if things go badly and there's the bitter taste of failure, some project that you've launched or some institution you started or some building you put up is falling apart, think, well, that was a mistake, or well, that didn't work. And rather than, oh my goodness, I'm a failure, that was a total say embarrassment, okay, to instead say, well, okay, that didn't work. We gave it some thought, we put some care and effort into it, but it did not turn out as we wished. Okay, what can we learn from that? What does that tell us about a good way forward? So that we're not inflating success and failure in an ego-centered or self-centered way, but rather everything, success, failure, and a mixture of both, it's helping to indicate what we can learn from. And so, as Ajahn Chah would say over and over again, like and dislike are of equal value. So success, we like. Failure, we don't like. But he was chop, my chop, tat hagan. They're liking and disliking, they're of equal value. In the Buddha's teaching, success is not necessarily tied up as or seen as anything worldly. In fact, what is called the iddhipāda of the four bases of success are seen as an absolute necessity. What they call in Latin is a sine qua non, a necessary condition for anything. Like for the Buddha's enlightenment, there needed to be the four bases of success. So the first of these is chanda. You need to be interested. in particular kind of work, or training your mind, or baking a cake, or whatever it might be, robbing a bank. It's morally neutral. But so you need to be interested. The second one is virya. You need to apply energy to what it is that you want to do. Chitta, and the third one is chitta, which in this instance means thinking it through. Okay, I want to train my mind. What are the methods to use? I want to cook a meal. What ingredients do I need? Have I got the time? I want to rob a bank. I want to be I want to defraud somebody out of a pile of money. Okay, how do I go about doing that? So it's morally neutral. So that, and those three work together. Chanda, virya, and citta, the first three all work together. And the fourth one is vimamsa, which is reviewing, like, did it work? Did we manage, how is what's the result of me meditating? What's the result of me cooking? What's the result of my effort to rob this bank? Did I get away with it? Did I get the money? Yeah. So those four, Chanda, Virya, Citta, and Vimamsa, they're called the four Iddhipada. And so what that points to is very important in this theme of anatta in daily life, because those four can be applied completely without any kind of self-view. And as a very good example is a dialogue between Venerable Ananda and a Brahmin called Unaba in Kosambi. And Unaba asks, what is the essence of your practice? And then Venerable Ananda says, freeing the heart from all desire. And then Unaba says, well, how does that work? That's a circular argument. How can you want to free yourself from wanting? It's like, that's circular. It's an interminable argument. And then Venerable Ananda explains, well, no, here we are at the Gosita-rama. We're in Gosita's park. So did you have the thought, I want to go to the park this morning? So, yes. And did you make the effort to walk here? Yes, I did. And did you think about what's the best way to get to the park? Yes, I did. And then having arrived at the park, what's happened to your desire to get here? Well, it doesn't apply anymore because I'm here. He said, so exactly. There was Chanda, Virya, Citta, and Vimamsa. That you needed that kind of desire. So that desire that is not based on ignorance and self-view is something that is very important and completely innocent in our lives. So basically the difference between tanha, craving, which is the troublemaker, and chanda, which is a neutral quality, but it can be applied to what is wholesome, dhammachanda, the desire for the Dhamma. So it's often, going back to what I was saying earlier today, people who feel that any kind of desiring or wishing or directing of your life is somehow the cause of suffering. Like, well, that desire is the cause of suffering, so we shouldn't desire anything. It's like, wrong. Because there's these two kinds of desiring, two kinds of wanting. Tanha, which always has a negative result, and then chanda, which can have this very positive result, and in fact is absolutely necessary for any kind of spiritual development. So that, I feel, is really helpful to understand. And then with success and failure, that yes, it's quite appropriate and can be completely in accordance with Dhamma to want to succeed, to do a good job as a teacher, as a parent, as a monastic, as a doctor, or whatever work we might do. That's not interfering with Dhamma. That's not an intrusion upon peace or upon reality, but rather it all depends on the attitude. The attitude is absolutely central. So if we're working with chanda, we think we're interested to teach or to be a doctor or to put up a building or whatever. We put effort into it. We think about what's a good way of doing it, and we look at the result. Okay, is this leading towards peacefulness or is it not? Is it leading towards benefit or not? So reflecting on success and failure and how to work skillfully and free of atta, free of those habits of self-view, it centers a lot around knowing the difference between tanha and chanda, and they can look very like each other. Tanha is very good at disguises. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you all, and happy to open things up for some questions and some dialogue. So please don't be shy. There we go. Yes.
Good afternoon, Ajāhn.
Hello.
Thank you. Related to this comment you made about success and failure, I was also remembering this phrase, attahi attana natho. So it's like there is a the skillful choice to be on the path, right? So it's not just that, I mean, maybe in the future, once we're done with it, we can let go of that sense of self as well, and realize that it's anatta, realize that it's not useful anymore. But like the difference between Chanda and Tanha, it is something that we do require at the beginning stages. Is that right?
Yeah, it's also a little to do with semantics. So when the Buddha says "Attahiyata no nato," let the self be your refuge. Then there are people who say, "I see the Buddha does teach us, that there is a true self." It's more like a figure of speech. When in the I think in the Digha Nikaya Sutta number 9, if I remember correctly, he says, someone says to him, how come you use pronouns like I and you and we and she and they? If all dhammas are not self, what's with all these pronouns? And the Buddha then says that the Tathagata uses the forms of common speech for the purposes of communication. This is for the ease of conveying truth and understanding without creating any delusion of independent absolute identity. Something along those lines. Because when he says, be a refuge unto yourself, it's like that self as a convenient fiction. Like what's your name? Meto. So that's a name. That before you were born, that name wasn't yours. There wasn't a person. Then you came into being, and your parents said, "Let's call him, this," and so that's what you go by. But it's a conventional designation. It's on your ID card, your passport. If I arrive at the immigration at Delhi airport and they say, passport, and I say, all dhammas are not self. It's like, back on the plane, or sit over there at least. And it's true, but it's not helpful in that instance. So when you say the self is a refuge, it's through the effort, the direction that comes from this citta, this particular place, is going to bring about liberation. And so a convenient way of saying is like Ananda, Sariputta, Kema, Upalavanna, names and designations. But that's useful from the outside and for communication. But for the inside, then there's no conception of a self, like the enlightened bhikkhuni Vajira, when Mara came along and was trying to sort of delude her. And she said, well, and referring to her as a person, she said, why do you think there's a person here? Just like the parts of a chariot, you put them together and you call it chariot, or like the parts of a car, or, you put it together and it's a car, Maruti, But individually, they're just elements that metal, rubber, plastic, and bones, flesh, skin, earth, water, fire, and air. You put it together, you say person, but there isn't really any person here. And she's not taken in or tricked or deluded by Mara. So it's it's to do with using conventional speech and conventional truths, being comfortable with that, but not giving them more reality, more substantiality than is say appropriate or is helpful. So that if we remember that anything, it's just a convenient fiction to say self, I am Ajāhn Amaro. It's a convenient fiction. And so that, particularly with crossing borders, then it's a convenient fiction. But if the mind takes that to be an absolute reality, then there's dukkha. So please, any other questions, comments? Yes, over here. If you can wait for the microphone, that would be helpful. Oh, okay.
It has been a very wonderful reflection, Ajāhn, from your side. And we feel really blessed to hear the words we have used, and they are so relevant to our Dhamma journey. But outside world where societies are aiming at faster economic and technological developments, I wonder, it can be helpful or it can be demotivating, where you feel that success and failure are alike. That's my question. In outside world, probably, I'm not sure how to correlate these two things.
Well, the aspect of vimamsa, the fourth one, that's the in a way the most important, is because we can put a lot of effort and think about what we want to do and why we want, and I want to do it, and I'm going to do it, and we do it effectively, but then we don't look what's the result. So vimamsa is checking the results. So if you're working in the world, you're looking after your family, or running a company, or you're teaching in a university, or whatever it might be, and then you think, well, I'm well respected, and I've got a lot of publications, and I've got a lot of letters after my name, but I'm totally stressed out, and I'm really jealous of the person who's got more papers published than I have. And okay, so the vimamsa is, yes, I put effort into this. Yes, it's had some pleasing results, but the way I'm handling it is creating this painful mental states around it. Or at the other end of the spectrum, you say, well, yes, I've been doing this and working in this way, and there are these results. I've got a lot of happy patients, happy students, people who are grateful for what I've done, and I enjoy the success of others. I don't feel jealous of other people, and I'm not looking to retire, but the possibility of not having to do this every day has got a certain sweetness to it. Okay, so then you see, well, the vimamsa of all of that work and effort is peaceful. Okay, so then that's what guides us. Okay, I seem to be on the right track. This is not burdensome, or I don't feel offended when someone says, "Oh, that he's well respected, but his ideas are totally stupid." Really, they say, okay, that's interesting. Rather than how dare they? That if you see that there as an ease in your heart as a result of the way you've worked and what you've done, then that's a good signal. And so whenever I talk about this, I often stress, vimamsa is kind of the most important of the four, because we can drive with, like driving a car. You can drive with great, you want to get to Varanasi, and you get in your car, and you're mindfully starting your car, and you're setting out on the road, and you're determined to get to Varanasi. And if you're not reading the road signs, then you might be heading to Mumbai instead. It's like, when am I going to see the signs for Varanasi? Because you've been diligently and mindfully heading in the wrong direction. So vimamsa is reading the signs. Like, okay, I've put the effort. I'm interested to do it, and I'm driving carefully. What's been the results of my driving? It's like, so if you follow what I mean, that if you don't look up and read the signs, then you can very easily head with great diligence and good intention in the wrong direction. So vimamsa is pulling out of Delhi and then seeing the signs for Madhya Pradesh and Mumbai. I think I've got off on the wrong exit. So then you can go around and head towards Varanasi instead. But that's what reading the signs of vimamsa are for. That when we can say adjust our direction or look at the results of what we're doing, and then we're guided by that. It's a feedback system. is guided by vimamsa. Because if we don't pay attention to the results of what we're doing, we can have the idea this is all good and helpful and beneficial, and then not reading the signals, not reading the signs, we can get ourselves very, very lost and create much more difficulty for ourselves and others. So vimamsa, that reviewing, that is really important. And also using your own personal experience rather than the sort of the judgments of the world, like saying, this is a really good thing, or this is, I'm so happy for you, to be able to say, yeah, but what's going on inside? I'm praised for this, or people admire me for this, but actually, here, how does it feel? What has been the result of it for me? Not just the awards I've got, or the kind of praise or appeal from people around. Is it really worth it, or what's happening here inside? And that's very important to do. There was another question over here, I think.
So, Ajāhn, thank you so much for your guidance. So my question was related with the walking meditation, which we had done this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So while one is walking, he can feel the texture of ground or the slope even through the boots, right? So in a way, he or she is aware of that realization. And on the other hand, one is analyzing that feeling. That's why I could recognize whether it was that crack on the tile which I was feeling. So should these realizations be considered to be mindfulness or distraction?
Well, you can see it both ways. You can use walking meditation as a concentration exercise. So rather than picking up on anything other than the sensation of the feet meeting the ground, you can use it for that, or you can use it just as with a sitting meditation, more as a kind of forum for the developing insight and those sort of those kind of realizations about anicca, the cracks in the tiles and so forth. That the walking posture is a framework that can be used in different ways, either for the development of concentration or of insight, and that you can make a decision before you start, if you wish, or just let things evolve naturally as you go along. Either way, but it's just a different framework for the practice. So isn't a sort of fixed right or wrong way. But rather, if you try it out, both as a concentration exercise, and then if you are more developing the quality of reflective wisdom, investigation around what's going on, then you're looking at the results of that. If you have the decision, well, I want to use this a bit more for developing insight and realization, and then within seconds you're kind of off all over the place. You realize, oh well, my body's walking up and down, but my mind is off in the Himalayas. So then notice that and say, okay, well, I had that idea, but actually the result is I'm really scattered and distracted. So then you use that to say, okay, well, that's the actual result of trying to work in this way. So you can adjust accordingly.
So if I got you correctly, you were saying it can be any of these two. It can be a restriction as well as mindfulness, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Well, mindfulness doesn't mean a lack of reflection. Mindfulness is a very broad term, and it can easily incorporate that quality of wise reflection, consideration. You can be mindful of considering, these tiles, they were in one piece when they came out from the shop, and now it's in 2 pieces or 3 pieces. Oh, look, that corner's gone too. These tiles, they are even as I'm walking, they're in a state of change. The change doesn't stop. And so there can be a mindful awareness of that flow of reflective thought, Just because there's thinking or that kind of consideration, it doesn't mean that we're being unmindful. So I would make more of a distinction between concentration, where the attention is fixed on a single object, and that your mindfulness doesn't just mean that one-pointed awareness. It can be very, very open. So what Luang Por Sumedho calls the point which includes, so that the point, the one point is, the mind is one-pointed, but the point encompasses the whole field of experience. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Ajāhn. So when we are contemplating on anatta or investigating through anatta, how does it help in observation of precepts, especially the third precept? How does it help in strengthening the observation of the third precept when we are contemplating through anatta?
Yeah, good question. The precepts, they work in a couple of ways. When people would ask Luang Por Chah, why do you have such an emphasis on monastic discipline and the kind of precise following of every little Vinaya rule? Doesn't that get a bit fussy, or doesn't that get in the way of the meditation? And he would say, well, no, because if you have that high standard of precision around your conduct, it helps you to be mindful. You're paying close attention to what you're doing, what you're saying, how you're moving, your way of this body relating with the world. So it's actually a mindfulness tool as well as what we would call sila. So keeping the precepts, the 5 precepts for lay people, it's also an aid for mindfulness. In terms of paying attention to feelings of like or dislike or restlessness or dullness and so on. In terms of the third precept in particular, then being aware of those feelings of attraction or competition in terms of the, say, seeing somebody or being with someone and feelings of interest or excitement arising or jealousy because they're more interested in somebody else. Like, it's all woven in together, if my memory serves me well. So that to be able to recognize, well, these feelings of attraction or competition or aversion, often the people that we hate most in the world are often the ones that we were closest to at one point. That it's very, I don't know how it is in India, but in the West, very commonly, when you're teaching loving kindness meditation, may all beings be happy, then there's often people have this feeling of may all beings be happy except him, the one that you married, or her, the one that you got married to, and that love easily turns to hate. And so that a recognition, like I was saying in the guided meditation about mindfulness of emotion, and that how you didn't create love, you didn't create attraction, you didn't create aversion. These are natural forces that we experience because we have a body, we have a mind, so they're there. And so that knowing them just as patterns of nature rather than I love you, or I'm attracted to you, or I'm jealous of you, that it's so easy to take it personally. And that's so that with the meditation, to recognize that feeling of attraction or aversion or jealousy, competition, that we can see it arises and it passes away. It's an aspect of nature. It's not a person, doesn't belong to a person. So that then, even though the instincts are extremely powerful, particularly sexual desire, that the mind can get a perspective on that. And the more that the mind can know them just as natural forces and not take them personally, then we're able to relate to those forces within us much more skillfully. So the precept, the third precept, is about not taking advantage of others or not being dishonest in relationships and so forth. And but it's a lot to do with that sense of understanding those energies and how they work, and not taking it personally. So you're not suppressing or saying that kind of attraction or interest in other people or competition with others is somehow evil or wrong or bad, but it's where it's attached to and not understood, then that's where complications arise. And it's where in the wording of that precept, kame su michachara, is the michachara. Micha is wrong or bad or out of order. Chara is conduct. So inappropriate conduct with respect to sense desire. So it doesn't just that the precept actually doesn't just involve sexuality and relationships. It could also be eating too much food. Sensuality of every kind. It's just kamesu. It's not just human relationships. It's any kind of sense pleasure. So it can be to do with addiction to going to the movies. So that karma is just sense pleasure. K long A M A karma. So the more that is, the precept helps us to not get into sort of karmically heavy activity in relationship to those forces, and the more they're understood, and with the meditation, to get to know those feelings of liking, disliking, and so on as they arise and as they're known, then it becomes much easier not to get drawn in and to create more complication through actions and speech related to those forces. I remember one time at the Amaravati monastery many years ago, I was the monastery secretary for a long time. And I was sitting with Lumpur Sumedho. He was, some people were having an interview with him, and I was sitting there as his attendant. And then a message came over, and I had to attend to something at the office. And so I sort of scooted out of the reception room, and then basically I wanted to get to the office, get this thing, get back to be with the Ajāhn as quickly as I could, because that was my duty. And so I had this thing in mind, okay, I've got to get to the office, get this piece of paper or whatever, and get back. And so then as I was approaching the door of the office, I could see this person coming to visit, this young woman, and I could see, oh, she's going to be crossing my path, and she's got that look, oh, here's a monk, I want to ask a question. So it's like, oh, this person's in my way, this is not what I want. And so my feeling was, this is irritating, I'm on a mission to get this document for the Ajāhn, and this person's in my way. And then, but it was quite a narrow pathway, and she was standing right at the edge of it. So as I came up close, then even though my brain was saying, this person's in my way, I don't want to bother with her, I've got to get this document, then it was kind of eerie, like coming within about a meter of her, suddenly there's, oh, it's a person, oh, it's a young woman. And then she said, oh, could you tell me where the meditation hall is? And I said, oh, it's over there. And then she walked off, and then it disappeared again. I thought, this is just like electricity. It's like a theremin, you know, you know what a theremin is? A musical instrument made of an electronic device. And you bring your hand closer and it gets louder. You take your hand away and it gets softer. But it's completely non-personal. It's just like a kind of electrical reaction. And so I did actually sort of stop in my tracks and thought, wow, that's so completely non-personal. It's just like a chemical reaction that happens between people. And that from one moment there's a sense of irritation and, oh, there's something in my way, getting in the way of my mission. And then, oh, interesting. There's, a attractive person, and then gone within, and it was just to do with physical proximity. They're completely non-personal. It's like a totally like chemical reaction. I thought, wow, there really isn't anything there unless your mind adds a whole story to it. So it was quite insightful. And I did go and get the document and get back, but I remember that because I'd never actually seen that so simply and straightforwardly. That and not belying every kind of relationship and family life and so forth. That obviously has its place in the world, and none of us would be here if our parents hadn't got together. So that's an important part of life as well. But where we have the precepts and where we have so many complications is through not understanding those feelings of attraction and aversion and jealousy and resentment and so forth. And so the more that we can know those and use the meditation to explore those, and then the simpler life gets, and we can relate in an appropriate and balanced way to those energies. We can be more responsible. And just because you feel attracted towards someone doesn't mean that you have to pursue them. And the monastic life and monastery life, it's idea, hopefully a good example in that you can live together and be in the human world and just not be engaging with others in that way at all.
So, Ajāhn, I had a quick question.
Speaking of men and women, there haven't been all the questions have been by men so far. So if there's any women who shouldn't feel you have to wait for all the guys to go first. So just to put that into the mix.
Shall I ask?
Yes, I'll take the one from YouTube first of all.
So the woman is Jasmine Bharatan, and she asked if during ill health, while doing what we need to and being present with the experience, is praying for oneself considered coming from a place of self-view?
Praying for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Praying for oneself while one is ill, does it come from the point of view of self-view?
Praying for yourself when you're
Praying.
Oh, when you're sick.
Pray.
Okay. No, I don't think so necessarily. We look after our body, looking after our life on a practical level to stay alive for our own benefit and also for the benefit of the people around us, people who depend on us or that we're connected to, and so that and then one of the most common forms of reflection on loving kindness is the first words are ahang sukhito homi, may I be well, may I be happy. Line one. So wishing yourself well is an essential element of the development of metta. So in times of sickness, that shouldn't be any obstruction. Again, the subtleties of it depend on your attitude. And so it might be that if the attitude is, I need to get well because I'm the most important person here, and it's, well, it's not quite the same as I want to stay alive so I can carry on helping the family and doing my good work. There can be different shades to that. But as a basic attitude, no, ahang sukhito homi, may I abide in well-being, may I be well. That's not egotistical, but it's rather looking after this being as one of all beings. Yes, this gentleman.
So my question is on meditation. For example, walking meditation. When I go for morning walk in the morning, I meditate on my speed. It should not go less than 5 kilometers an hour. If I get up at night, my meditation is that I should sleep easily. If my nose is blocked, my meditation is that it should get cleared. Now, is God an essential component of meditation?
Is God.
Is God an essential component of meditation?
Well, in the Buddha Dhamma, we don't have a concept of God as an entity. That's not a part of the Buddha Dhamma. The word Dhamma itself is what we use as a word to refer to ultimate reality. So Dhamma is the fundamental principle of reality. So that is an intrinsically central aspect of meditation. So we say being in tune with Dhamma, practicing Dhamma, realizing Dhamma. We use that kind of language.
It is a hidden part of meditation,
Well,
with or without our knowledge.
Without acknowledgement, yeah. So
we acknowledge, but we may not be knowing that our consciousness may not be feeling it.
Yeah, that's correct. You might not be thinking, I am doing this in order to be in tune with Dhamma, or this is the practice of Dhamma. That those words might not necessarily be taking shape in the mind, but they can be, our actions or our attitude can be fully attuned to the time, the place, the situation, without the thinking mind spelling that out.
Thank you.
Yes, this woman in the back row there.
Hello, sir. Sir, I want to know about your life, your experience, that how you came into this and what was your childhood like and what motivates you to enter into Dhamma and what you learn from it. What is the essence and what you have actually got from it? Yeah, if you have already explained it in the morning session, actually I came late at 10:30. If you have already told about your life, then you please don't. Otherwise, please tell. I want to.
I'll try to keep it brief. I'm not very good at short answers, but I was born in England in a very average middle-class English family. And my parents were not particularly religious, but in England, the dominant religious form is what's called the Church of England, which is a Christian denomination, and it's a very, very non-intrusive, undemanding kind of religious presence in the country. So oftentimes people will register themselves as Church of England being their religion and never go to church and never have any kind of real involvement. So my family were like that. So my sisters and I were sent along to Sunday school when we were small, but my parents never went to church on their own volition. Yeah. So, but the schools I went to all had a little Christian service, Church of England service, at the beginning of each school day. And you had to join in with the hymns and the prayers and the Bible readings. And I was the kind of child that had lots of questions and always wanted to understand things and figure things out. As soon as I could read, I liked to not just read stories, I liked to read encyclopedias. And so I was always wanting to understand things and had probably an irritating amount of questions for everybody around me. And so I was, first of all, I was very surprised to hear that Bethlehem was not just the other side of Cranbrook, in England. I thought, it's this really important place and this really important person, Jesus, lives there. I was about 3 or 4 years old. And I assumed Bethlehem was far away, like the other side of Cranbrook, like as a substantial drive, but we'll go there one day and meet Jesus. And then I know Bethlehem is hundreds of miles away, thousands of miles away, and Jesus died 2,000 years ago. Oh, that's strange. Why is that so important? But and then a real turning point came for me when I was about 7, and I don't know how acquainted you all are with Christian teachings, but we had to learn what's called the Apostles' Creed, which starts off with the words, I believe in God the Father, creator of heaven and earth, and his only begotten Son, Jesus Christ. So we had this Church of England minister who was teaching at these classes. And so we had this first line, and I stuck my hand up and I said, sir, if you don't believe in God, should you say the words and be lying, or should you not say the words? And he just said, don't be cheeky. I thought, well, that's not right. That's a stupid answer. I didn't know what the answer was, but I felt that's not convincing at all. So then from 7 onwards, then I had more and more questions about that and the kind of say feedback I got from teachers and authorities, figures around, didn't answer any of those questions. So but I could see that God, whatever this was that they were talking about, was the most important thing, but I couldn't figure out, what that was. Or how that worked to the reality of existing. And I remember at the age of about 10 or 11, sort of sitting down one night and trying to figure out what's the nature of God. And one of the things I remember writing down at that time is that we create God in our own image. that according to our experience or our perceptions, and that what we think of as being God, like an old man with a long white beard up in the heavens, like, well, that's just because of our particular stories that we tell here, but that can't be it really. And so then through my teens, I had more and more questions and tried to figure it all out by myself. And so I was quite a party animal. So I was lots of drink and drugs and partying and dancing all night and such like. So I was more of my spiritual searches were more on that kind of ecstatic, what they call Dionysian side, rather than the ascetic. Sit still and keep lots of rules and be quiet and restrained. So I was more the kind of do everything kind of religion. But that led to me being alcoholic by the time I was about 20 and still didn't have a lot of answers. I went to university and studied psychology and physiology, again, mostly psychology to try and understand my mind, but asking forgiveness for any academic psychologists here, it didn't answer many of my questions. And it was mostly not about my mind. It was mostly about rats and pigeons and statistics, which, have their place in the world, but it's like it didn't leave me with a lot of answers. But during that time, I got to know a person who was giving lectures in London from the Rudolf Steiner tradition, which is a kind of mystical Christianity. And but Rudolf Steiner was a Swiss mystic and kind of polymath. He's a brilliant scientist, architect, medical practitioner, gardener. He has an incredible mind. And this fellow gave lectures about Rudolf Steiner. And then that there was a very strong spiritual dimension to that. So by going to those lectures and finishing my university degree, I'd come to the conclusion that spirituality was the only really important thing in life. And that even though I had a lot of possibilities in the academic world, or I thought of going into theatre, and also I had my godfather was a partner of De Beers Diamonds, so I had a few doors that were open. But it's like I thought all of them would like, what am I going to do with that, or how's that going to solve anything? And the one thing that was interesting was spirituality. I didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted to do. But I finished my degree and had my 21st birthday party, said goodbye to everybody I knew, and then took off to Southeast Asia. And so then wandering through Southeast Asia, I found myself in Northeast Thailand. I was trying to get away from the Western tourist beach scene and to see what kind of, I was trying to immerse myself in Eastern spirituality, but just ended up with the same kind of white middle class dope heads that I've been living with in England. So I thought, this isn't what I came to Asia for. So I took off to the northeast of Thailand, which is very remote. And there's no beaches, no mountains, no tourists go there. But it's also the epicenter of most of the great spiritual teachers. That's the epicenter of their activity, and where most of the great teachers live in Thailand is in the northeast. And I walked into this monastery where there was a number of Western monks living. And to my surprise, when they introduced me to Buddhist teachings, it sort of, not only did it match what I've been trying to figure out for myself, but it was like 1,000 times more comprehensive and complete. And I thought, oh, I wasn't the first person to think all this stuff. And in fact, it's all been worked out far more comprehensively and completely. I had like 0.1% of the picture, and this is all perfectly worked out. And also, there's local people who want to feed you every day to do it for nothing. So I thought, well, this looks great. This is okay. This is called Buddhism. Fine, So I came into it more from my own personal experience, and the appeal was that this is a way I can really do something about my mind, and that was January of 1978. So about nearly 45 years ago. So that's how come I'm here. So it's now 5 o'clock. So let's draw things to a close at that point. I'm sure you've got other useful questions to ask, but please do contemplate those and bring them along tomorrow. We'll finish with it says metta chanting. Which one do we do? In English? Okay, I know the words. So which page is it? Page 36 is the Buddha's words on loving kindness. I needed the book for the 5 subjects because I always do them in both languages. Just trying to do the Pali on my own, I was going to get lost. So please do join in if you wish, or just listen if you wish not to join in. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downward to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. So I wish you all a good evening and look forward to gathering together tomorrow morning.